Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Welsh, and today I'll be presenting to you on a chapter called Billy Ray Virus, which is taken out of Diane E. Goldstein's book, Once Upon a Virus, AIDS, Legends, and Vernacular Risk Perception. Before diving into the Billy Ray Virus chapter, I wanted to give you all a little more background information on Diane E. Goldstein because she is a really amazing folklorist. And she was born in New York in 1956, and her father really influenced her to go into the folklore field. She's a past president of the American Folklore Society, and she taught folklore at the Memorial University of Newfoundland for 24 years. And I'll give you some stories later on, but this is where she gets her stories about Billy Ray Virus, and she has a personal connection to the Billy Ray Virus case, which is really cool. She spent 3 years working on the Canadian Federal Committee for AIDS Priorities and Policy, and some of her other famous publications include Haunting Experiences, Ghosts in Contemporary Folklore, and 9/11 and After, Folklore in Times of Terror. She's also famous for writing the first anthology on AIDS and working with the Canadian government to help develop AIDS policy. One thing that she does in this Billy Ray Virus case is it uses her folklore knowledge to identify where the police went wrong and use folklore legends as a basis to develop charges against Ray Mercer, but more on that later. So just to give you a quick summary of the chapter before I dive into the main points. Billy Ray Virus, the whole chapter is about a man named Ray Mercer, and he is HIV positive, and he knowingly spreads the virus to two women in the Conception Bay North area in Newfoundland. And Conception Bay North is known for its extremely high HIV rates. It's the sixth highest worldwide. And this is attributed to the area discourages sexual protection due to their extreme religious beliefs. There's a lack of treatment for other STIs, which increases the HIV infection rate. So people with, say, chlamydia or gonorrhea don't seek medical attention, and this increases the probability of getting and spreading HIV. And lastly, there's a high sexual activity levels in Newfoundland teens, and instead of using birth control, they use anal intercourse to prevent pregnancy, and this also increases HIV spread. So there's a high HIV prevalence in the area, and Ray Mercer gets convicted and sent to prison for knowingly spreading the HIV virus to two local girls. However, the police and the public and all, like the people throughout Canada, blow the story up, and they make legends and rumors and jokes, and they personify this Billy Ray virus on Ray Mercer in order to explain the high HIV infection rate of the area. The first main point that Goldstein really made to me was how Mercer's case allowed for insight on the impact of rumors and legends on reality. So this whole Billy Ray virus persona arises because Mercer's case was plagued with public confusion, and this confusion led to rumors and narrative traditions about the area's HIV problem. So Billy Ray Virus and Mercer basically personify the HIV problem in the area. In reality, Mercer was only charged for infecting two women, but the locals and police believe that he infected many more. And this actually led to the police filing 2 additional charges against Mercer, and this was on the basis of the rumors of an unknown female. So there was no known female, but still the police filed charges. And what is really cool about this story is that Goldstein was involved in this case. She was contacted by the prosecuting lawyer, and her expertise in folklore came into play as she identified that the police were really tapping into an AIDS folklore tradition and kind of fabricating 2 additional charges and preventing justice from being carried out. And Goldstein actually convinced the lawyers and police to drop those 2 additional charges. So that's a really neat example about how folklore can affect reality and how your knowledge of it can lead to the betterment of a judicial case. The second point that Goldstein makes is that Billy Ray Virus demonstrates the lifeline of folklore and really the birth of a legend. This legend is produced as a public outlet for action and interpretation, when there is little true information, and the truth about the high prevalence of HIV in the Conception Bay North area is really difficult for the public to face. And this lack of information leads to rumors, jokes, and legends about biliary virus, and when they're created, they quickly spread. As we talked about in class, it's not really about if a legend is true or not, it's more about if the public believes it and why they believe it. And as I'll talk about more in my third point, the public really believes this because it allows them to localize the blame onto one person, and it kind of removes guilt from themselves because they don't want to have the feeling of guilt and the stigmatization of the HIV problem in the area, so they put it all onto Ray Mercer and create this biliary virus. And it really connects well with old legends when there was little information about something. So, like, for example, Native Americans had lots of different legends about why the leaves turn and the rainbow, and it's because they didn't have the true information. So these legends get created and quickly circulate as a way to give feelings of control, and this allowed the public to have a feeling of control with the HIV virus by localizing it all onto Billy Ray. I'll get into that a little more in my third point. But Goldstein also showed here how the folktales and legends that were created really impacted the public's perception of the area, and it changed the locals' lives. Two examples were given where one college student who was from this area just lied when introducing herself and saying she was from somewhere else, so she didn't have to deal with the stigmatization of the area. And also, other college students will carry around HIV negative, like medical certificates to just prove to the public that they don't have HIV, which really shows how the stigmatization and all these biliary virus legends can impact someone's life. I just wanted to give an example of some of the rumors, legends, and jokes about biliary virus and Ray Mercer that arose in the area due to the lack of information. So one person in Conception Bay North said, well, they say his attitude about it is that I'm sick and I'm dying, so I'm taking a couple people with me, and I don't care. One joke is, what is the new postal code for Conception Bay North? UIC HIV. And then lastly, one person said, a friend of mine called me one day and he said, oh, Ray Nish, which is Ray Mercer, just slit his wrist and chased his mother up the road. There was another story about how he was changing a flat or something at a local gas station there in Island Cove on the Maid Road, a GAO station. An RCMP officer stopped to talk to him when he cut his hand again and smeared the front of his uniform. I also heard how they arrested him for impaired one time and went to put him in the back of the police car, and he threatened to do that. As far as I knew, that was true. He said, you're not taking me anywhere. I'll cut my wrist, So these legends, rumors, and jokes all arose because of the lack of information that was provided about the actual case. And you can kind of see how they really villainized Ray Mercer to try to get some of their stigmatization and place all of the blame on him to make it look like he is really in charge of all of the HIV problems in the area when really he only infected 2 people. The last point I want to talk about, and I think this is the most important one that Goldstein makes in this chapter, is how the legend that Mercer is patient 0 and how he's biliary virus for HIV in the Conception Bay North area. This legend is created by the locals because it allows them to kind of get rid of their blame and responsibility for the high HIV rates, and it allows them to believe that the problems with HIV and AIDS in the area all reside with Mercer. And Goldstein shows how the more evil Mercer is in the legends and in those 2 stories that I read to you guys in the last slide, how this evil Mercer allows his victims, or in this case the locals of the area, to feel very innocent. They feel like they could not have done anything to prevent the problem when this is not true. I mean, no one is using birth control due to their religious beliefs, and no one is seeking medical treatment. So this is what's creating this perfect like incubation zone that allows HIV rates to just flourish when the public doesn't want to address this. Instead, they blame it all on Mercer. So Mercer's stories explain the AIDS devastation in the community while removing the locals' responsibility to do something and the guilt they have about the HIV situation. So without Mercer and this biliary virus, the negative stigma and the blame and the guilt attached to Mercer would attach to the Conception Bay area. And that's what this legend of biliary virus is allowing the public to remove. So this is just showing, again, how it doesn't matter if the legend's true or not. It's about why the public believes it. And that's what's really interesting about this biliary virus story. Reflecting on this chapter, I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was a really great read, and I'd recommend to all of you to check it out if you have time. Going into it, I knew that there used to be a large negative stigma associated with people affected with HIV and AIDS. Like, I remember people wouldn't shake their hands. But I never thought to look at it through a folklore perspective and how folklore played a role in the HIV and AIDS pandemic. And I really enjoyed Goldstein educating me about this. And some connections that I really made to class when reading about this was how there is a folk group in the Conception Bay North area, and it's like This Is Where We Live, as we talked about in one of the first lectures. So this Conception Bay North folk group has their own legends, rumors, and jokes, which are all forms of folklore, and I really liked seeing how Goldstein showed the impact that folklore has on reality, how it's not just stories that are passed on from word of mouth. Like, it's more than that. There's a physical manifestation of this folklore, and it changes people's lives. And I really liked connecting that to all the different modes and things that we have learned about in class. So just to finish off here, I have a few questions to leave you with, and I really hope I can hear about it in discussion. But firstly, how do you guys think that time and social progression has changed the stigmatization and folklore behind the HIV pandemic in the world? So just with increased information about the disease, how it spreads, how do you think that impacts the stigmatization? And how do you think that would impact folklore being generated about HIV in the world? And then, do you think it's any different if we just focused on Conception Bay North area, where they have already strong folklore with biliary virus? I'm just curious if you guys think that with all the new information that we have, do you think they'll be able to move past these different legends or not? And then secondly, can you think of any other different forms of folklore legends and rumors where they place all the blame of a situation on an individual in order to remove the guilt from others? And I thought one that really might be applicable is the COVID pandemic that we've been dealing with. And can you guys think of any different legends, rumors, or jokes that you guys have heard about COVID, and how those different forms of folklore might be used to deal with the situation that we're living through right now? And then lastly, do you guys have any questions for me about the reading or any of the different topics that we talk about in class? I'd love to hear them in discussion. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great day.